JM and the AM, we're welcoming some amazing guests into our studio this week. Among them, Rabbi Steve Burg. Rabbi Burg is the head of Aish International. He's held that position for 10 years or so. Would that be accurate? About 10 years. And has made quite a mark. From an outsider's point of view, it looks like over the last 10 years, he has taken Aish, which had enjoyed a certain measure of success internationally, and has grown it exponentially. Or exponentially. Am I right about that? We'll find out now. Rabbi Steve Burg, a pleasure to welcome you to JM and the AM.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on this Veterans Day, which you said so eloquently. We thank all our veterans, but even better to be here with a close friend and a good friend.
I appreciate that. And I conjectured live on the air this morning, if I asked Rabbi Burg when was the first time we met, would he be able to answer that question?
No, absolutely. I mean, you were my teacher in MTA, and now I've actually had 4 boys graduate MTA. So,
wow.
So that dates us a bit. But,
say that again. And each one of the classes that we enjoyed together, and I am reaching with the assumption that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Every class began with a look at what was happening in Israel. Do you recall those days?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I was so inspired. I went on. I got my master's in Jewish history, and I have a great love for it today. So
wow, and you're giving me all the credit, huh?
Absolutely. No, it was really a great class. It was a great time. You know, being a senior in MTA is, you're kind of like, I don't know. It's my year to be free.
Let's say it's difficult to use your time wisely.
Exactly. So it's definitely, but I think you made a really big impact on myself and a lot of the guys there.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope, in fact, I could take 1% credit for whatever you've achieved so far. So, look, to us, and I talk about the last 10 years, and you heard that in my intro, to us, Aish has always been a very important epicenter. First of all, I would say of Jewish life. It is in the heart of the old city of Jerusalem, which, lends itself to incredible geographical benefits. But in addition to that, it's always been at the epicenter of the Kiruv movement, the Yeshiva movement, a place where someone could come and actually, in a textual academic way, discover their heritage, which I think most would argue, I don't know about everybody, but certainly I think most would argue that if you're going to explore our tradition, text and academia is a really important facet of that journey. Agreed?
Absolutely agree. That's, we believe that every single Jew needs to study Torah because that's their heritage and need to understand the intellectual pursuit, because if you just have the emotional attachment, at some point it's going to, cease to exist. I mean, you can see it today with all these liberal Jews that were they were supportive of Israel, and then their kids were not supportive of Israel because they had no context to what Israel meant to the Jewish people. And so our job is to give context.
100%. And in the last 10 years, and again, you're speaking to somebody who's nothing more than an observer of what's happening at Aish, has that academic arena grown tremendously? Like, are there more classes? Are there more students? Like, what's happening with the nuts and bolts of Aish in Jerusalem?
Yeah, so certainly physically, I mean, our yeshiva, thank God, has grown exponentially. We'll just keep using that word this morning. But, we had last year over 65,000 people that stopped in to sit with us and actually physically learn with us. We had over 1,000 young men through the dorms, and we have a new building on King George right near the Great Synagogue with 200 beds for young women. So on a physical level of studying with us, we've grown tremendously. But perhaps more importantly, since the beginning of the internet, Aish has been online. And about 5 years ago, we made the decision to go big time into social media. And we do 1 million video views a day with Torah content. And right now, through AI, we're actually going to launch something called AISH, where we're going to be accredited. And our goal is to get 3 million Jews, 20% of the world Jewish population to study Torah. Our new goal is to get every single Jew to study Torah. And that's really a post-October 7th goal, where we've come to realize that in the old days, when you would lose a Jew, they would intermarry, they would assimilate, they'd be gone to the people. Right. But today, they're actually attacking Israel. There are young Jewish kids on campus attacking Israel because they don't know our story. And I believe that's our fault. I mean, when I say our fault, I mean the connected community. And we have to reach every single Jewish young person and help them understand the importance of Israel and the people.
Rabbi Steve Burg is here. You caught me off guard guard there because I thought you were heading in the direction of there are many who've gone into the arena of intermarriage and, different influences that have seeped into our community, etc. But October 7th forced them to re-examine their Judaism and come out. But you went the other way and said many of them, unfortunately, have become actual enemies of the Jewish people and the Jewish state.
Yeah, we've seen both. I mean, certainly, we're very thankful. We had gone into social media in a big way the couple of years before October 7th. So when October 7th hit, we were ready, and our numbers went through the roof, and there were so many Jews just saying, why did my friend who liked me on October 6th now hates me on October 8th? That was a massive question, a lot of Jews. But there were a lot of Jews that frankly went the other direction, and they were embarrassed by Israel, and they attacked Israel, and they're still...
And as the war went on, that only grew, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole genocide thing.
And it's very interesting to me to see the election of Mamdani where he got 92% of the Muslim vote, but yet 35% of the Jews voted for him. And as our community, we don't always understand these bigger pictures. We certainly don't understand the role that Sahel plays, which you and I appreciate. Without the IDF, I mean, of course everyone wants the IDF gone because without them they'd be able to finish the job with the Jews. But young people don't understand that and this fake genocide and all these other things. So our goal is really to reach all the Jews that no one else can reach. The more unaffiliated, the more that person's my target. And if I can get them connected to Jewish people, Aish is not cradle to grave. I'm happy for them to get involved with Lakewood, OU, YU, Chabad. I want to find that unconnected Jew, show them the beauty, and then let them, continue their own journey.
Is it possible in this social media world to actually reach every Jew in the world? Like, is that a doable goal?
Well, can Amazon reach every single customer? As I would say to people when they ask that question, it's like, literally.
Did you consult with Bezos about this?
Amazon knows me better than me. The algorithms today are unbelievable.
They know whether you're in the U.S., they know when you're in Israel.
It is truly scary. It is truly scary. But also with the advent of AI, we use AI big time. We have an AI rabbi on Aish.com that when you go there, you can ask any question to the AI rabbi.
And you know that they'll answer responsibly?
Yes, we did a lot of testing. We've been at the cutting edge of AI, and at a certain point, if someone is asking the right questions, they'll be transferred to a live rabbi. But the first questions are, because we get a lot of non-Jews, which is okay, want to know more about Judaism. We get some young, yeshiva third grade students that want help with their Navi homework, right? So we can only use our rabbis for X amount of resources. So we start with AI, and then you could be transferred to a live rabbi. And we're using AI to basically, we have 50 years of curriculum, 25 years online, to basically create classes now and to reconstitute all of. So we're using AI literally every single day to do much of what we do.
You know what I like about the AI rabbi? Never stands too long of a Shemona Esrei. I like that about it. Doesn't hold up the crowd.
The AI is,
I got to get somebody to do a whole list of those, of things I like about the AI rabbi.
He doesn't have a problem with Kiddush Club.
Right,
there's all kinds of great things in there, But we tested AI. We asked all kinds of crazy questions to try and break it, and we finally found one we were comfortable with.
Wow. Where would Aish be without that component? If for instance, we'd still be in the era of when you and I met, and the social media would not have either been created or exploded the way it has, would it be a yeshiva in Jerusalem that's attracting people who stop by the holy city?
It was always on the cutting edge. If you remember the early 90s, they honored Steven Spielberg at a dinner, and they had literally, if you can remember, I'm sure you remember this, but I'm sure people remember this, they had these satellite trucks outside the dinner, and they were blasting it by satellite around the world to South Africa and London. Aish has always been that cutting edge. And, Kirk Douglas, we have the theater that we put in there. Right. Kirk Douglas himself gave the money for it. And, Aish had the Discovery seminar that was on every inch of the planet. So we've never just been a yeshiva. I believe, and I feel very strongly about this, that the yeshiva seminar is the heart of the institution. That if you're in an institution that intellectually wants to teach Jews, you must have yeshiva at the heart. And it's headed up by Rav Yitzchak Berkowitz, who's one of the great Torah leaders of our generation. Yep. He, by the way, made Aliyah over 50 years ago, has never left Israel since he made Aliyah.
Do you know where he was here in the United States?
Brooklyn, grew up in Brooklyn.
Has never left Israel.
Yeah, he never left Israel. And recently, Rabbi Meir May, we were talking about this, who came on board, and we were, Rabbi May and myself and Rabbi Burkus were sitting there, and I kind of got up the guts because Rabbi May was there, and I said, Rabbi Burkus, maybe you can explain to Rabbi May why you don't leave Israel. Yeah, I always wanted to know, but I couldn't ask, And he said it was really one of the most unbelievable conversations. He says it's a marriage. He said, I love Israel. He said, that's what it is. I'm not, he wasn't giving halacha and this and Gemara, He said that his relationship to Israel, he explained his parents were survivors, it's a love affair of him and the land of Israel, and he can't bring himself to leave. And I was like, you're my guy. You're my guy.
Yeah, that's for sure. You brought it up, so I'll ask you about it. The Hawk, circulated once Rabbi May was hired by Aish. I don't know if his association with you has officially started or not. Has it begun?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. This week was his first week.
Oh, really? This is it. Yeah. And he's very experienced in the world of not-for-profits, or you can name a few different worlds, and he's a very well-known figure. I think you consider him a Rebbe of yours in this, right?
He's my mentor. Absolutely.
He's your mentor.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time in California.
I was a regional director for West Coast NCSY for 5 years, and my office was next door to the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And by the grace of God, he took a liking to me and mentored me.
All right. So what's his role going to be at Aish?
So we have a couple of new roles, which is very, very exciting, and having to do with the fact that we're starting AISH-U, this accreditation and this mega program. So Rabbi Dr. Daniel Rowe, he submitted his dissertation in the philosophy of mathematics, disproving atheist. I don't really understand more than that, so you're going to have to speak to him.
At least you know the title.
He's very much like Rabbi Sachs. He knows the Quran by heart. We've had all kinds of dialogues at Aish. He's an amazing, brilliant person.
Where is he from? Is he in Israel?
He was from England. About a year ago, I heard he's thinking of going to Israel. Oh. I raced to England and said, you need to come to Aish, and he's going to become the president of AISH-U. We hired Dr. Akiva Kovitz, who was the associate dean of Harvard Law School once upon a time, was one of the founders of edX through MIT. He's going to be the dean, and Rabbi Meir May is going to be the executive vice president of this new entity and the greater Aish, who he's just someone who has been in the Wiesenthal Center for many, many, many decades. He's been there his whole career, and Rabbi Heyer retired, and I went to him. I said, look, why don't you come have some fun? We got a great location, great guys, great people, great students. Why don't you come out and help us build this thing? And he said yes, and I was shocked, but he said yes.
So you want to conquer the world, basically.
The Jewish world, the Jewish world. Look,
it must be an incredible fundraising effort to launch a program like this. I mean, you probably need commitments that are gargantuan in order to actually convince people this can work.
Yeah, we when I came on board, after Noah passed away, we had some challenges. I came a couple of years after that,
right.
And I came on board, and we were an $8 million budget in Jerusalem, and honestly, pretty much bankrupt. We were 3 months behind the payroll, had a lot of challenges. This year, our budget is going to be close to $40 million. And we have a lot of fundraising that we're doing, a lot of great partners. We just, like I said, we did this 8-story building for the young women, which is, I call it a giant white monument testament to the importance of women's education, smack on King George in the middle of Yerushalayim. I think that the time is now, especially after what we've seen in the last 2 years. Anyone that had any doubts that the fight is as important as it ever was, I think that now is the time that we got to go get, and the more of our Jewish brothers and sisters we can bring back, the bigger of an army we're going to have to fight this fight.
There are other people, by the way, who've been rumored to be joining your team. Is that something we could discuss publicly or not?
I'm an open book. I'm curious to hear
So we've heard David Cutler is moving to Aish.
David Cutler is moving to Aish.
Has that happened already?
Yeah, well, he's starting December 1st. In fact, I think he had his last day at the OU. I hired him there. He's the guy I went to high school with.
That was a great hire, by the way.
I want you to know that Hill Scheinfeld's our COO, and David Cutler is coming on board, and we were all in your class back in MTA. So there's something in the water there. But David Cutler is coming on board. He's been at NCSY over 20 years. He built summer programs at a place no one in a million years ever could have conceived. He's absolutely fantastic, phenomenal, and he's ready for his next challenge. And I think for a lot of the folks that have come on board for us, it's they want to support Israel in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't preclude, like, what they've done is great work until now, but right. We're really at the heart of things in Israel.
Future of the Jewish peoples in the state of Israel.
Absolutely, and we are one of the largest. We're an Israeli institution. We operate as an Israeli institution. We're very involved governmentally there in a lot of different things.
That helped your fundraising during the war. war? Because we keep getting this impression that so much North American money went to Israel during the war. Did that help you, or that was more of an IDF type?
It didn't help us. It helped the Jewish people.
Right.
In fact, I think for most nonprofits, it was that fourth quarter where most people do their fundraising and all the money shifted to Israel. And frankly, we were all okay with that. We just, it was what it was, and it was super important.
Hey, it affected us, but we weren't bragging about it.
Yeah. Look, we're the Jewish people. We always there are always needs, there are always things going on, and the bottom line, look, there is certainly something special in the air. Everything that's going on in the world, everything pointing towards Israel, and now to me, we're in the ninth inning. This is like, how do things close out? How do we make sure that Israel, and frankly, we do a lot of work with Israelis. There are a lot of Israelis that are not connected as well, and then the danger is they do their army service and they leave and don't come back,
right.
And that's something that we have to work on, and we are working on it.
Boy, oh boy, you must have a lot of partners there, because it sounds like you're trying to, help every segment of Israeli society.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we know a lot of people. Like I said, we're an Israeli institution. We were, as you may know, we ran in the World Zionist Congress for the first time. Aish had delegates that were there.
Right.
So we do play that role. I meet with Knesset members all the time. I just met with a Knesset member who's absolutely phenomenal. He told me, he said, we have to make sure Israelis know that God is real. I'm like, oh my God, you sound like Rav Noach, and we're going to partner with him to do similar things. And look, the Jewish people, the one thing I've come to realize is, and this is very meaningful for me, is that Israel doesn't work without Torah, and Torah doesn't work without Israel. And without those two pieces, it actually doesn't work. And I think both sides, wherever they find themselves, need to come closer. Danny Danone is a terrific guy, terrific friend. Every year he brings ambassadors to Israel, UN ambassadors, and we host them at Aish. We give them lunch or dinner. We have cocktails on the roof. And one time he came and he said to me, we were talking. I said, Danny, I saw that you just brought a Tanakh. He brought a Tanakh to the Security Council and was like waving it around. I said, right. Danny, I was blown away by that. So first he joked that his friends in Israel call him now Rabbi Danny. That was the first thing he said. But the second thing he said to me was, he says, Rabbi Burg, without Tanakh, none of this works. And he's right. None of it works. And so we've seen, especially here in America, as people tried to be Zionists without being religious or without connecting to Torah, it didn't make the second generation. Just the opposite. Second, third generation has been going up against our people. So it doesn't work. We've got to have Torah. We've got to have Israel. And all sides need to come together so we can see how this thing ends.
Rabbi Steve Burg is here, Aish International. What is it, Aish.org? What do people get information? Aish.com, rather. Excuse me, Aish.com. They could see videos. They could donate to your cause. I'm sure they could read up on the new AISH, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
It's all there.
Yeah.
And if they want to speak to the AI rabbi, they could do that as well.
Absolutely.
And make sure to get a quality answer. You've guaranteed that. Now, at what point, because look, Aish has been well known for decades in terms of their yeshiva for men, et cetera, but at one point you actually opened up a seminary for women. I assume that was your innovation, right?
It was Rav Berkowitz wanted us to head in that direction.
Oh, interesting.
Basically,
and he felt that without the women's piece, it's hard to lay the foundation that you described earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the vision of who and what we are is Rav Berkowitz. Rav Berkowitz is the Rosh Hashiva. We very much defer to him, on the vision. What I like to tell people is that vision without implementation is delusion, right? So you can have great vision. We can also have great
dreaming.
Yeah, you should dream, but at some point you got to figure out how to make your dreams happen. So Rav Berkowitz said we got to get 3 million Jews to study Torah. Great. Hang on, Rav Berkowitz. We went to social media in a big way. So Rav Berkowitz is always pushing us to go out there, and he said we need to have a place for young women.
And the Young Women's Seminary has existed for how long now?
Now just over 3 years.
Under the leadership of?
3.5 years. Rabbi David Rossman oversees everything, and Mrs. Michal Dubov is the person that runs it hands-on there.
And has it been popular? Is it sold out? Or
very, very, very. We have 2 programs. One's a post-high school program, which we had over 500 applications, originally for 50 spots. Now that we have more beds, we're going to go to 70. And then we have Bali Tshuva. And the great dynamic in the yeshiva and the seminary is that post-high school, mono-Orthodox young men and young women can be exposed to Bali Tshuva, who opted in. And that's very inspiring. And the flip side is that for a lot of the mono-Orthodox young men and young women, they're the army. They go out there. And I tell you that our number one recruiter today, our number one recruiter to the yeshiva and seminary it's called EFG, Urban Family Gesher. The mono-Orthodox students that go back to university recruit these unaffiliated Jews to go study at Aish.
Is that the Gesher we know, or it's a different one?
That's Gesher.
The Gesher we know?
Yeah, we call it EFG. It's Gesher. Yeah, that's the Gesher. They go back. I told a good friend of mine years ago, his son wanted to go, and we were starting to get popular, and he's like, what's going on here? I said, look, you could totally send him, but you just need to understand that he's going to want to save the world. And that's in the, it's in the
DNA.
The DNA, Edward Berkowitz, and they'll get up every day and say, you got to go save the Jewish world. And that's how we roll.
There are a lot of crazy stories that we hear about Aish. The guy with the knapsack who shows up in yeshiva, and 10 minutes later, he's, committed to studying Torah every day for the rest of his life. Anything. Yep. And by the way, these stories don't only happen with Americans, right? You meet people from there are many countries,
sure,
where someone will drift in from, I don't know, France, all Belgium, over. Asia, etc. And so has something happened recently? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but have you met somebody and you said to yourself, I cannot believe this story?
One of my favorite stories was I was there for Sukkot, and when I'm there for Sukkot, I have a lot of our partners. I have lunch and dinner, all the meals with them, and then we always bring students, and I like listening to the students. And one of the students was just telling us that, they came, they were totally secular, not connected. And what happened was they said they traced it back a bunch to a great-grandfather, a great-great-grandfather, where one became secular, one became religious. And so they had this whole religious side of the family, and he was the secular,
right,
and he was trying to figure out if he was a Kohen because of his last name. And no one knew in his entire secular side. And he was Googling. He somehow found an old obituary in the New York Times that really shouldn't have been in there. No one knows why it was in there. And that connected something. Make a long story short, he's got hundreds of relatives in Israel. He is a Kohen, and they have adopted him. Every Shabbos he's going to another family member. But it goes back to these two brothers. And that's what makes you want to cry, because, one brother became secular and lost his entire family except for this one young man. And the other side has hundreds and hundreds of beautiful Jews. And that's very, very common.
And he's now entrenched in Israeli society.
He's entrenched, and a lot of our Balei Tshuva do make Aliyah. It's actually very interesting.
I would imagine so. They fall in love with the land. I mean, the land is often what brought them to begin with, right?
Totally.
They go to Jerusalem and they're like, wow, I just feel something I've never felt before.
They'll go to Brooklyn.
So you have a big advantage.
Yeah.
This is the difference between you and Waterbury.
It's totally true. Totally true.
You win the geography war.
Yeah, you stand and you look at the kotel and you're like, but I tell you, some of them, we have a young man, tattoos, long hair, the whole deal. He came for the other side. He told me his story of being in Hebron, but with the people that are not pro-Israel, and then crossing over, wow, and meeting the soul. And make a long story short, he now married a young woman whose father gives a chabur in the mirror, and these stories are unbelievable. They're absolutely happening constantly. We also have, by the way, just parenthetically, we have the largest Spanish Baal Tshuva program in Israel, which just opened up a base medrash in Parat Yosef, and we have hundreds of young men
coming from which countries?
Mexico, Buenos Aires, Santiago, all the different Latin American countries. We're very big in social media in Spanish in Latin America. The largest.
Who leads that for you?
Folks that know Spanish.
The ones you met in Washington Heights in the old days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, AishLatino.com is the largest Spanish-speaking, and by the way, it works in Miami also, for a lot of our brothers and sisters.
And you have plenty of people fluent in many languages who can take on these tasks.
Well, many languages, and I'll take it a step further. With AI, you can now service any language, and that's really been very helpful to us, because our specialty is actually Hebrew, English, Spanish. For French for a while, we were in Russian, but we've kind of pulled back from that. There are other people that do that. But today, because of AI, all of our stuff could be available in any language that a person wants. And then that's why we're spending so much time in understanding AI and where it's going.
And I'd be shocked at which country checking in so often at Aish.com. Is it Korea and Japan? Those are the ones, right, that are always surprising to everybody.
My favorite moment was we had a rabbi that actually grew up and majored in Chinese and spent years teaching in China, and he wound up on one of these journeys, came back, and then we had Forbes had these really wealthy Chinese businessmen that came, and they wanted the South Koreans and China, they like Gemara. They came in, I'll never forget this. He had a big black yarmulke on his head, sits us out the whole thing, and he's giving a shiur in Mandarin to these Chinese folks. So we have another rabbi that speaks Japanese. It's really, you could, any day you walk into Aish, you'll be like, what the heck is going on there?
Yeah. You had many media appearances on major networks, and during these 2 years, because they were turning to you for comments. Any of them of note? Like, was there one appearance where you were just, I don't know, either describing what was going on with the IDF or speaking specifically about what Israel was going through that you remember that comes to the forefront when I ask?
I mean, all of them were so important. Getting on there, trying to explain to people, it's almost like
was
surreal.
The genocide argument the most frustrating one?
For sure, it's the most frustrating because it's totally ridiculous. It's not based on anything, and just the attacks on AIPAC and all the other things. We're all kind of defending ourselves constantly. I'll be honest with you. This might be controversial. I actually think we may be getting to the point where Israel should stop taking aid from America.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
They don't need it as much anymore. Correct. And frankly, what people don't understand is that America benefits more than Israel because of the military. The entire world wants to understand what Israel did in the last 2 years militarily to be able to understand it. This embargo on Israeli weapons will last about 30 seconds because they all want them. And, I feel very blessed to have been in a lot of these places. Feel very blessed to have Shabbos Kestenbaum, who is an Aish alum, and I've seen, he was one of our candidates at World Science Congress. He studied Aish for 3 years, He's very much, if you speak to him, Rav Noach played a big role in his advocacy. And so many of our students, are out there kind of fighting this fight. So I felt blessed that I was able to represent Israel, stand tall for Israel. But I think, there's so many people. We all have to do it, every single person.
Amazing. Rabbi Burg, how often are you in the United States?
I'm here often
to pick up Amazon packages.
I'm back and forth all the time. I'm back and forth at least once or twice a month. Depending on what's going on here, what's going on there. It's been a long 10 years, but I joke with Dillinger. They said, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. So I go where the Jews are. And
the travel is still something you can deal with, because I've hit an age where it's not nearly as easy as it used to be.
It definitely. I can't say 10 years later I feel exactly like I did 10 years ago, but I go like I said where I think it's important. I went to Ukraine to visit with one of the rabbis in the community. This was like 2 years ago in the middle of the war and stuff. So, that was the only one I got in a little bit of trouble from my wife. She was less than thrilled, and I had to drive 8 hours from Moldova. And, people were like, why are you going? I'm like, well, I write my weekly email. And, but to be honest, the rabbi came to my office, and I'm like, is there anything I could do? He's like, well, we need chizuk. He's like, a couple of people, this one now, like, people have come. Like, so why don't you come? I said, okay, look, if you need chizuk. So I went for Shabbos. I went there, and then I turned him. This is great. I said, how did it work out with all those other people that came? He's like, oh, they all canceled. I'm like, you didn't think to tell that to me? Before but look, it's at the end of the day is the Jewish people. I say this all the time. One of the issues that people have with us is they don't know what to do with us. We're not a nation. We're not just a religion. We're certainly not just a race. We come in so many different colors. But at the end of the day, we're family. And family is always there for family. And as I said, 2 years ago when I kept coming back to the States, the Israelis were saying, the folks in the States, are they, paying attention to what's going on here? And sure enough, we sent 5 billion duffel bags, to remind them, and money, etc. Now I'm going back to New York, and the Israelis are saying, how are the Jews in New York? I'm watching Mamdani. So I think that's a very special and important piece that, the only way you remain family is if you worry, A, you worry about each other, and B, you show up.
Yishai Fleischer was on last week, so I said to him, especially Chayei Sarah is coming up, and Chevron in general always has news, if you know what I mean. And I said to him, how's everybody doing? The security concerns, I know they're expanding the community, so that means you need more finances in order to put in all the apparatus that's required, et cetera, et cetera. He goes, we're doing fine here. We're worried about you guys,
It's really true. It's really true. And I'll just say this. I find Mamdani to be evil. I think it's a huge problem. I think he's doing the double speak that we've seen all around the world on college campus where, you go on, and you asked me about TV appearances. Yeah. Folks go on there and they'll say one thing and they're saying something else. We used to say all the time, watch what they say in Arabic, not in English.
Right.
And you're seeing that a lot, except now everyone's speaking English, but they're speaking two different languages. So, we're going to have to, fight the good fight. And that's it. We're not going anywhere. God's got our back.
Well, I think it was Bill Maher who said that the Mamdani has to convince everybody that he's young, that he's progressive, and what was the third thing? Young, progressive, and and a socialist. And Marr said that's exactly the opposite of how Obama ran. He was trying to convince somebody he wasn't too young, he wasn't a socialist, and he wasn't whatever the third thing was. So yeah, it's a different era now.
It's a different era. They could be much, much more open. You know, Nick Fuentes. I mean, this is unbelievable. Going on Tucker Carlson. You know, and I spoke recently about that in media, and you know, just the fact that he can do that. This is a guy that's like a straight up, you know, Hitler worshiping Nazi. There's not even a stigma to Hitler anymore. I mean, that's how far we've fallen. So it's going to be a difficult run.
Yeah. All right. I hear you, boys.
And on a positive note,
well, it's a complicated topic in my opinion,
yeah.
Because I do believe that a lot of members of the media of our faith and a lot of members of government of our faith have handled that whole situation poorly. So it's somewhat his fault, and I'll use that with a small h, not specifically him. But it's also to a degree our fault. We also need to know how to navigate things and do so responsibly.
Absolutely. It's look, you know, having just been at the World's Honest Congress, you know, that talk about responsibly, you know, like
you happy with the way that ended?
You know, it was, we're not sure. No one really knows.
No one knows how it ended. And someone said to me about a week ago that in 2 weeks it'll be resolved. I don't know if that's true, is it?
It will be resolved and everything will move forward. But it was disheartening, I think, for a lot of people that were involved. I've been involved a long time, and I have very low expectations when I work in general.
Any governing organization.
Yeah, and but it was hard. A lot of people were there, and the process, it's parliamentary. Americans don't really follow it, understand it. I'm not even sure the Israelis do. But look, at the end of the day, you know, it's a mess, but it's our mess. And so, you know, I said to what my delegates were like, what are we doing here? If like this, you know, I said, honestly, we have to be in the room. They have to see us in the room. And I'm a really big proponent of that. We have to be in every room.
No, but I like how you say it's our mess, because it doesn't in any way affect others. It doesn't affect anybody from other countries, or, you know, nobody's concerned with what we're doing might affect them in a negative way. And that's something I think we need to be more concerned about.
Absolutely. And like I tell people would be like, you know, like, oh, I'm like, do you ever read, you know, the Book of Kings, Sefer Malachim? You know, we have been a mess for a lot of years. But ironically, as we know, when we get attacked from the outside, that's when we come together. And that's what we have to be really, really focused on. You know, it's the Yom Kippur before October 7th, people were fighting in the streets of Tel Aviv. And then
on Yom Kippur
itself. And then, you know, this came and Hashem said, look, you got to get each other's back now.
Rav Stav was here yesterday, so he mentioned that about the Yom Kippur services, and I mean, just reminded us about what was going on at that time.
I chaired the last World Zionist Congress. I chaired the resolutions, this massive thing. They asked me to chair it. I get up there screaming and yelling the entire time, you know, because it was over the judicial. Ago. Yeah, it was over the judicial stuff. And even
5 years ago.
Well, there wasn't 5 years ago. There's one in between, because 5 years ago was COVID, so they couldn't have one live. So they did one in between, and I chaired that one,
and that became a focal point.
And it was a focal point, and it was just screaming and yelling, and that thing bothers me more than anything. It's just this inability to sit down and have conversations, because Ronald Reagan said once, and there's a quote I have hanging in my office, he said that the person I agree with 80% of the time is not 20% my enemy.
Right.
He told that to his handlers about another politician, you know, and he's right. You know, we agree on so many things that we have to kind of figure out how to focus on that and not get caught up on the small pieces.
What a pleasure having you here today.
Always a pleasure to be here. I'm such an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Rabbi Steve Burg, Aish.com for information about everything we've spoken about.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
Say hi to the AI rabbi.
Yes, the AI rabbi. See if you could stump the AI rabbi.
You have we send it to everyone in the world. I'll get here. See, here's my cell phone number, 646-830-0872. WhatsApp me. You know, take a picture of it. If you could stump him, I'll put that challenge out there. We want to hear it.
You know, my father, who was, as you know, a very prominent rabbi, of a very large congregation for many decades, so he would joke as follows. He had a session in between Mincha Marav on Yontif. I think it was only on Yontif. Usually it was Shalosh Shudas on Shabbos. So on Yontif, between Mincha Marav, he had a session called Ask the Rabbi. You could ask whatever you want. So he used to say that the youth, the kids in the shul, called it Stump the Rabbi. Like, you know, let's try to come up with a question to stump the rabbi. So I said to my father, were you ever stumped? And he said, I was stumped once. And I'm like, wow, you know, this is going to be dramatic, right? What were the circumstances? He said, someone once asked me, why Shabbos morning I sit on the bima, and Shabbos mincha I sit with the regular crowd. that was the only question. That was the only question that stumped me. So it's funny, whenever I walk into a shul, mincha Shabbos, I see the rabbis, sitting with the regular guys. It's the first thing I think of.
That's so funny. Oh,
so
that's
there
great.
You go. So maybe the AI rabbi will be stumped by a similar query.
Totally. Please, have at it.
Thank you, Rabbi Burg.
Thank you so much.
Aish.com, everybody. Aish.com. Rabbi Burg is, of course, the head of Aish International, visiting us on a Tuesday morning here at JM in the AM.